called to order. We do have a quorum present, so we can move forward. Quickly to address those in attendance today, and by way of just giving you a bit of background, the DHRC was developed in order to serve as the eyes and ears in the community for the development of our historically designated areas, as well as those in the river corridor. Guidelines for that development can be found in several places, most prominently the River Corridor Master Development Plan, which was adopted by City Council in 2006, the city sign ordinances, as well as other relevant ordinances that had been passed, and the historic preservation guidelines, which include the city's central business district. We also hope to make recommendations that are in keeping with the city's involvement with the Main Street program, as the goals and directives frequently overlap. The purpose is to ensure that a balance is struck between providing flexibility in building design and to promote and assure a consistent design quality that complements the character of the area. We've been working to bring additional clarity to the entire process of review by this commission so that it may become one where all parties clearly understand the guidelines and expectations for review. Staff has indicated that the minutes from October meeting are not yet available for review and approval. They will be presented to the commission at its next scheduled meeting. I do not see any other consent agenda items listed, therefore we will move on to the regular agenda items. I believe first on the agenda will be RCC 1423. This request was tabled at the October 28th meeting. The Design and Historic Review Commission, I'm sorry, that's a little redundant. At the request of the commission to allow the applicant to reevaluate the height of his proposed freestanding sign and to submit a revised building facade and renderings associated with his previous approval. This request for approval of a freestanding sign, this is a request for approval of a freestanding sign in the river corridor. The sign may have a maximum sign height of 36 feet when measured from the ground on the following property. 1 West Concho Avenue, located at the southwest corner of the intersection of West Concho and South Chadbourne Streets. More specifically, San Angelo Edition, Block B, Lot 21. Okay. And north 49, 5.5 of the east 100 feet of the lot in central San Angelo. The public hearing is now open and the time is 10:06. Staff, may we have your presentation?
Okay, good morning, DHRC members. So our first case today is which was tabled from October 28th, is for the proposed cactus sign at the top of the existing building at 1 West Concho Avenue. Mr. Condon's, the second case will be heard later. That's an amendment to the building facade. So we're going to hear the sign first, and then we'll hear the case on the amended facades later. So the applicant, from last time, as you know, had submitted a rooftop cactus sign, which was going to be 10 foot high on top of the roof of the building with a 2-foot base. At that last meeting, Mr. Condon had proposed 2 alternatives showing possibly having a canopy and then having the which is 11 feet high, then having the cactus at the front of the building instead of all the way up on the roof, which would reduce the sign height. And so that's what he's decided to do. And he hasn't made any changes to the cactus. He'd like you to hear the approval based on what he submitted before. The only difference will be now it will be on top of the revised building with the canopy. So we'll just move ahead here. So this remains unchanged from before. So the cactus will remain 10 feet high on a 2-foot base, 7.5 feet wide, so it'll be 75 square feet on top of the canopy. This is the existing rendering from before. With the sketch, we asked for further details showing to scale where the canopy and the projection of the canopy would be with the sign on it. And so that's essentially what he submitted earlier this week. And so again, the canopy It's actually 10 feet with the 1 foot width here, so it's 11 feet off the ground, and the cactus will essentially stick up from there. The sign itself, because it's also, we mentioned the canopy was encroaching 3 feet into the right-of-way, because the building was built in 1969, already goes up to the 0 frontage. So the cactus as well as the 3 foot here, everything within that 3 feet will have to get an encroachment approval agreement from City Council, and that will be a condition of approval today. And so planning staff is recommending approval of the sign, as we did before, with 5 conditions of approval, and we're going to read those into the record now. Number 1, the approval of the sign shall be consistent with the dimensions per those attached renderings. Number 2, the sign shall be predominantly painted a shade of green that is consistent with the color palette of the National Trust of Historic Preservation for the suburban modern 1950s period, as was before. That condition has not changed. Number 3, all exterior lighting shall be shielded and positioned in such a manner so as to not spill over onto adjacent property. Number 4, this also remains unchanged. The final color samples, signage renderings, and lighting details shall be submitted to the Planning and Development Services Director or his or her designee for final authorization prior to sign permit approval. And we'll get into that in the next case. The colors and the samples of the elevations have remained unchanged. The only difference is that canopy at the front, and he has recessed some of the walls back a little bit. And number 5, prior to final approval of the sign permit, the applicant shall obtain the right-of-way encroachment agreement from City Council for any portion of the proposed signage which projects onto a public right-of-way. And we'll open it up to questions and comments now.
All right, at this time, do we have questions specifically for staff?
I've got a question. I thought at the last meeting that it was decided, or I brought it up as a proposal, that it would be 8 foot tall with 2 foot. I thought that was, and you were in agreement with that. Is that?
I will address that directly to him in a moment, but currently what you're looking at is still at 12 feet, is that right?
Correct. The sign will be 10 feet on the 2 foot base, which was the same as what was approved by the Planning Commission with the sign variance. So he's going to keep that the same, he said.
This is on the sign itself, is that it?
Yes.
I have another question. If I know the encroachment has to be brought to the City Council, if that's not approved, then will this thing be brought back to us again, and he'll have to change his
Correct.
his design again?
Correct.
Seems like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. So wouldn't it be better to figure out if he can do that first, and then come back with the sign? Or
Commissioner Rebecca Guerra. Rebecca Guerra, Planning Manager. It can go either way. It could literally go before the City Council, or you can make your approval contingent upon City Council's approval of the encroachment agreement.
I will say that, I think one of the things that has made this tricky for everyone is that this went to the other commission before it came here, and that would have cut down on some of the chaos and confusion around it.
You are correct, but because the elevations changed at the last minute, and we only found out that the canopy was going, as you remember, at the last meeting, there was an indication that the canopy was not going to encroach into the right-of-way. It will now encroach within the right-of-way. In order to not add another step to the process before, and not to have to table this yet again,
Sure.
you can make your condition contingent upon City Council. That way the applicant doesn't lose any more time having to literally stop, go back and forth. So now, your condition will be contingent upon City Council's approval. They have to go anyway for the grease trap and for the canopy itself. One more thing added to that encroachment agreement, won't lose any time.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The cactus itself does not stick above the building, is that the picture that looks like? Okay.
Correct. It only sticks above the on top of the canopy. So technically, when they approved it at the Planning Commission and you all last time, it would actually, if it was on top of the building, it would be, from the top of the cactus would actually be 36 feet. But now it's essentially only 21 feet because it's, or excuse me, 23 feet because it's been brought down.
Any other questions? Marty?
Yeah. If there are no additional questions for staff, then we will open it up to public comment. Other members from the community who are wishing to speak may address us, come up to the podium, please state your name. We are going to open that public hearing, and unless you are specifically asked to come up to the podium and answer a question, I'm sorry, am I skipping ahead? Huh?
Just stop.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys, we have a new format. No. Well, no, that's
All right, I'm Tim Condon, and I'm the owner of the Angry Cactus. I'm going to make it real quick because this is the second time we've gone through this presentation pretty much. This is the logo. The Angry Cactus is the part that's in question. You know, this is the logo that's pretty much caused all the controversy. Just want to make sure that you guys are aware that the sign as it's on the corner right now above the canopy, it's 100% in compliance with the River Corridor Master Plan and also the sign ordinance. In the River Corridor Master Plan, it sets a limit of 75 square feet and a maximum height of 30 feet from the ground. Those are the two main parts of the pieces of the puzzle that we wanted to make sure that were you know, compliant as far as the sign design goes. Another thing is, you know, we're looking here and we're reviewing the aesthetics. That's the color, the lighting, and the overall design. The Planning Commission was tasked with setting the size. I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. This sign is not phallic or offensive. I know that those are the two words that have been tossed around multiple times. I haven't come across anyone who thinks that way or thinks that it's inappropriate, and I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that also. We have done and bent over backwards and done everything you guys have asked us to do. We provided scale renderings. We provided a miniature model. We took it off the roof to you know, make sure it's not too large. That was never our intention. We also hired an architect to do the sketches because I know that my sketches weren't to scale and apparently appropriate enough. Another thing is, you know, city staff is recommending approval, and I also talked with almost every city council member yesterday, except for one, and they're all in complete support of it. In fact, I had multiple conversations with multiple city council members, and they're all completely in favor of this. Lastly, you know, I'd really appreciate your vote of yes. This is something that's unique, creative. You know, this is something that we want to do. You know, 90% of restaurants fail. It's a statistic that everybody in this business knows. And it's my job to minimize any risks. And by creating a nice entrance and putting my logo up front and creating a brand, that's how we're going to, that's just one of the pieces of the puzzle that's going to minimize the risk. A lot of restaurants in downtown and a lot of bars in downtown have switched ownerships in the past few years. You know, that statistic is scary in this business. 90% of restaurants fail. And by not allowing me to have a sign on my building, it's going to be really, really tough and a really uphill battle. It's going to be an uphill battle to climb. So I would really appreciate that you would allow us to put our logo on the building. So thank you. Any questions?
Do we have any questions specifically for Mr. Condon? Well, I think that we did leave off last time. I kind of expected to see, I guess, the 8-foot sign and a 2-foot base. Is that an idea that you've stepped away from, or?
We believe after looking at all of the, reading all the bylaws and reading the River Corridor Master Plan, that is not in the jurisdiction of, you know, that's not what we're really looking at. The size is not the issue. It's, if you don't like the design, we can change the smile, we can change the colors, we can change the lighting, the overall design. You know, this back and forth of negotiating the size was quite, was not what I came and was prepared to do. And, we really want to make sure that we can have, I'm asking for a 10-foot sign with a 2-foot base. So, we're off by 2 feet. I didn't want to go back and forth and negotiate that. We're trying to have a size that can have the most impact, and I believe it's a 10-foot sign with a 2-foot base. Margaret brought up the whole issue of when you're outside, the scale really shrinks. It's going to be lower than the building, 2 foot lower than the building. Any smaller than that, it's not really going to do what I'm expecting it to do visually. I have this vision in my head that I'm trying to create, and I really want a grand entrance, and I'm, not trying to ruffle any feathers or do anything like that. It's a matter of principle at this point. I just think that, after 4 meetings, this thing is just getting too crazy, and I just want to put a stop to it, and I'm hoping that you guys can vote yes for it.
Folks, additional questions? Okay, thank you. Are there other community members who wish to speak on any of these issues? Yes. If you would just state your name.
My name's Nathan Porter. I grew up here. Parents live here. I work here. I spend my money here. Met my wife here. My kids born here. Go to school here. My whole life, that building's been empty and derelict. It's just looks like bums live there sometimes. He wants to make it a nice restaurant. Wants to put a sign up. That doesn't look that bad. I mean, I don't like it that much, but I don't like a lot of stuff downtown. There's a lot of tacky, ugly stuff. But government's not supposed to work like that. Not supposed to, encroach on the small business owner when he's not really. I mean, I appreciate y'all want to keep downtown looking nice, and that's not going to make it look any worse. That's going to make it look better.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, we appreciate your thoughts and feedback.
Okay.
Further comments?
Good morning. How are y'all today?
Good.
For anyone who doesn't know, I'm Eric Eggemeyer. What we're looking at with this issue is very difficult to talk about, because right now it does a little bit talk about the size is an issue. What it looks like becomes an issue. The master development plan for the river corridor, everything about this is talked about in this book. This is the master development plan. It has been approved by the city council, by city planners, architects, historians, people within the community to make sure that the community looks a certain way. I'm sorry, I can't get into this microphone very well. I'll just speak if that's okay. The master development plan was created by the River Corridor Commission in guidance with cooperation of the City Council. It's dedicated to the individual citizens of San Angelo. What we have with this is not government coming down telling a business how to operate. We want the business. We want restaurants. I'll reiterate what I said before. I want growth. I want creativity. We have to have it for our store, for our business. Our lifestyle requires it, and we have to have the people continuing coming downtown. While one bad decision or one element of non-taste might be approved, and which it can be approved, and it can be taken to City Council, and City Council will approve it. So what's the reason of having this board other than being rubber stamped? But that's neither here or there. It wouldn't be the first time that the board did not vote for an item, voted it down, and it got appealed to the City Council. That's due process. That's what's in the laws and bylaws of our council. That's fine. But what we have is the council elects each and every one of you as members of the board because they view that y'all have expertise of some sort. Y'all just aren't anybody off the street. You're not some Facebook popular opinion. You're here for architects, developers, landowners, people that have a common vested interest in downtown. And while I agree, we're not talking about a historical significant building at all. It's been there several years, burned out. The owner of the building, Lee Pfluger, he approached me 4 or 5 months ago saying, Eric, I want to give you the plans of this restaurant I'm building. Here are the plans. He sent them to me. Multiple letters saying, please help me with the design of this building. I want you to show me how I feel that what you do downtown as a developer, as a business owner, as an architect, the ideas that you implement within downtown, I like them. I want you to help me with mine. Now, Mr. Pfluger, it's not the reason for this building and not being developed now. It's not because there's not been a good use. It's not because of the funds. Mr. Pfluger has plenty of funds. He has plenty of buildings. I am friends with Mr. Pfluger. I like his ideas. I like a lot of the things that he's done downtown. He spent so much time and effort and money downtown so far, more than probably anybody put together. So it behooves anyone to say, let's stick to the design guidelines that we've already established for this board to help the benefit of the community. We're not talking about just downtown as a whole. We're talking about the first and historic street of San Angelo, Block 1. There's not another one. It's not Beauregard, it's not Knickerbocker. Although those streets are very important, they can't compete with downtown San Angelo Main Street as a source of significant historical value. And part of this manual that we have to stick with talks about historic background, talks about the executive summary. The reason for this exists. The following is intended to provide a summary of key ideas underpinning the River Corridor Master Development Plan. The original ordinance creating the River Corridor Commission did not provide for specific guidelines which the River Commission could assess the matters brought before it. Therefore, this report contains review procedures guiding design principles that are believed to be representative of the City Council and the needs of the community. I can go on. I don't want to read out of this, but it also talks about appropriateness, ugliness, talks about the City Council. If there's an issue, they have the ability, and this board has the ability, to have meetings with them to find out why it is the board votes this way. After all, y'all are the experts. It's not the council. If it goes to the council, they're going to approve it anyway. The person that took me off the board said, either vote this way or you're off. I said, what about when you get somebody in here to vote that doesn't vote your way? He goes, I'll keep getting somebody on this board in this seat until they vote my way. So that goes to show you they don't know what this board is about. This is what y'all are about. And I'm for the growth. We have to have growth. I have a building. I have multiple buildings downtown. My neighbor that just bought that's in contract now to buy this huge townhouse. Beautiful, beautiful ideas of what he wants to happen. But if we don't have the flow, the characteristic, the integrity, architecturally and historically, if we don't combine that and integrity, then we have nothing because it goes astray. And you have to stick with that. Although the building does not provide any historical, in any way, any importance. When that happens, when you have a building like this that doesn't have any historical importance or architectural importance, you go to the surrounding area. And on that surrounding area on Concho Street, there's several buildings that still do. That's what I'm trying to abide by as well in my building. I want it to maintain the flow. And while size isn't really important, or it is important, but it's not an issue of say this case on the building, size is, it sticks up too tall. It doesn't follow the integrity of the architectural or the historical area. If you bring it down, it can be smaller. It doesn't have to be 12 foot because it's closer to your eye as a pedestrian on the street. It's much smaller. It can be smaller. Matter of fact, I was voting for it to be 6 feet plus 2 base. That's 8 feet. For some reason, it's got into a debate over one council member or one board member. I was only one vote. Matter of fact, there was 2 or 3 other people that voted along versus 2 that voted against. I was just one vote. It's not Eric Eggemeyer against this. I want it to happen. But when you talk about the design principles, the guiding principles of a historic area, you have to be very careful to nurture, to cultivate, and keep an eye for the design guidelines that are already in existence. I mean, that's what this thing exists for. That's what your board members are supposed to uphold. So just by upholding this, it doesn't fit. And I'll make this quick. One thing that we've overlooked as the people that are already there, the taxpayers, the people that located on this area that say, I want my needs protected. We all had to abide by these same guidelines. Nobody's ever come up to the board and just raised this much banter and get popularity votes and got their way. I can't go to Paseo de Vaca in Santa Rita and just go ahead and buy a house and put a burrito stand on it, park in the parking lot, and put RVs in front of it. Why? Because there's rules, there's codes, there's things that exist to protect those neighborhoods. That we're no different. This is our, so to speak, our homeowner association. And unofficially, I've been going downtown, getting the idea of the people that are on Concho Street, the business owners. And this is not my made-up words. This is what they say. It looks childish. It looks like a children's attraction area. It's cartoonish. There's nothing like this within the area. Why does it have to be here? It doesn't fit anywhere on Concho Avenue. It looks like it belongs in an amusement park. I don't want it downtown. Are you kidding me? Aren't there any other areas for this guy? These aren't my words. These are the words of business owners that already pay taxes for the area, and they had to jump through the same hoops we've all had to jump through for downtown. We're not asking for downtown to change in any way. We're abiding by the rules and guidelines as much as we can by what they say, because we know what downtown on Concho Street is trying to do. Another individual. The aesthetics are terrible. This building doesn't fit the downtown area. The sign is bad. It is ugly and inappropriate for the historic downtown area. It talks about parking and the problems with bars and their windows being broken and smashed in by drunks from the bars at night. That's an issue we have too.
Thank you. Do you, I'm sorry, Eric, in conclusion, do you have much else to go through?
Just as a board, if you stick to the manual will follow you through. We need to be more transparent. There needs to be better communication through the planning and this board. But just on historic block 1, we're talking about a different thing. We have an individual coming into the most historic area of San Angelo. It's not like North Chadbourne, which I agree, this place would probably be great for North Chadbourne. And again, I'm for it. I am not against this at all. We have an individual that's saying, give me exactly what I want, I'm not changing anything, or I'm not opening. That's not y'all's problem. That's the individual that doesn't want to open if they can't get everything they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. At this time, is there anyone else from the public who'd like to come forward and provide comment or input? All right. Well, if the commission has no further questions for staff or the applicant, and there are no other members of the public who wish to speak, I will now be closing public hearing. At this time, unless you are specifically asked to come to the podium and to answer a direct question from the commission, or I reopen public hearing, please remain seated as public comment period for this item has now been closed. Commissioners, I will now ask each of you if there are any comments or observations you would like to make regarding this request. Staff has handed out a worksheet delineating the design guideline criteria to be used for review by this commission. Please limit your comments to those consistent with the design guideline criteria. And that's this packet, I believe. Sure.
I've got a question for staff. How far does block 1 go down? Does it pass Chadbourne? Is it all the way down the?
No.
It's just that one single block, correct?
This is not in that.
Okay, so this is not in block 1. Okay.
That's correct. Block 1 ends at Chadburn Street.
At Chadburn, okay.
Chadburn too.
Okay.
Oaks.
Okay, so it's just kind of right
It's
on that
across the-
edge, okay.
Across the street.
I wasn't here for the last meeting, and I have a couple of questions to the staff, probably to some degree. What seemed to be the consensus of? Is it the name that they don't like? Is it the building that is aesthetically not? Is it the canopy itself? What is the particular one? Is there any one thing that is?
It seems to have been the sign itself that has caused the sticking.
The sign is Angry Cactus?
The cactus itself.
The cactus, okay.
What you're seeing sitting right
So that's the sticking point right there.
It seems to be. Commissioner Mazur, do you have particular questions?
No, not this time.
Donaldson is not here. Commissioner Morris?
I don't really have any other questions. We've heard everything that's come through. I would like to say, though, that I really believe what Eric just said, and that is why we're here. It's not about rubber stamping, and it's not about capitulating every time somebody gets, mean, ugly, and in your face. It's about doing what's right based on what we were hired to do. That being said, not really hired to do, appointed to do. I know that staff has recommended approval. Am I not doing it right? Oh, sorry. Staff has recommended approval, and we know, based on other information, that once it goes back to council, they will approve it, so it may be a moot point. But I think it should go on record that most of us have had multiple reasons for not approving it, and that's unfortunate. I wish that things had been done a little differently, more printed and defined guidelines, and I take the blame for that too, because I had been asking for the criteria and didn't have it until last week. So, and that's not anybody's fault. We're all new. We're all doing things the best we can. But I just did want to go on record as saying that I think what Eric has just presented as a now ex-member of this commission is appropriate conversation and should be taken weightedly. Thank you.
Commissioner Mallard, do you have
No.
anything to add? Okay. I actually have kind of prepared a few things because I'd like to address just some of the struggles that have existed around this case. The commission has had a difficult time reaching consensus. The essence of that difficulty is not, or is that this is not only an atypical design in an area where harmonious blending has been emphasized as an aesthetic goal in our guidelines, but also because of the atypical variance that was granted for it by another commission, making the scale arguably out of sync with the proportions of the building and surrounding signage. I would also like to apologize to the applicant for our being less formal and clear than I think we ought to have been. Here in San Angelo, we have a very relaxed atmosphere in many ways, and that can be a great thing. But in this case, I think that the lack of formal clarity made the process more difficult than it ought to have been. We have been actively, though, working to correct those things and make this board and more efficient at its job and make sure that it's communicating effectively with anybody who does have to come before us. Because of our own failings in affording more clarity and out of respect for the fact that I do believe the applicant had made significant effort to address many of the concerns of the commission, I would like to see us find a way to get the sign approved today. That said, some of the specific areas of our guidelines that have caused this case to struggle are found in the River Corridor Master Development Plan, and a few of those are from the Guiding Principles section on page 11, Besides the essential question of whether something is attractive in its own right, one must consider its setting and relation to specific surroundings in terms of scale, placement, color, and texture. From page 13, the primary objective for projects to demonstrate sensitivity to the river corridor and adjacent properties in terms of siting, bulk, height, materials, etc. Sensitivity in design and harmonious blending cannot be overemphasized. From page 24, as concerns new additions to buildings which affect the canopy and signage, new buildings or new additions to existing buildings should be compatible in size and scale with the main building. From page 20, in the historic city center, pedestrian-oriented signs can be small, and the design and uniqueness of the sign can relay character of the store. Now, this section specifically dealing with signs in the plan looks to a different style of sign altogether and doesn't include details on this 3D sculpture style. From the Historic Preservation Guide, which this location does fall into as part of the Central Business District, there is a section on signage where it says careful consideration should be given to the size, placement, and graphics of a sign in order to create a uniform district. These are all things that come out of our paperwork. As I say, I think that it is unfortunate that those weren't clearly delineated and clearly stated from the beginning. It's allowed for this to sound like more conjecture and opinion than based on fact. Although all of the objections that this commission has had that I have heard fall into one of those categories just previously mentioned. But now, if there are no further comments, and if now that everybody's had an opportunity to speak, I will instruct the commission as to what actions may be considered by this commission regarding this request. The commission may choose to approve the request subject to the conditions of approval presented by staff, or approve the request with changes to the height and size of the sign and or changes to the conditions of approval presented by staff, or deny the request or remand the decision without a recommendation by this commission to the next available city council meeting so that a final decision may be made by that body. The last and final thing that I would like to address before we move to a potential motion is that in our previous meeting, I had recused myself, from voting. And as I stated then, I chose to do so out of respect for the applicant and comments that he had made stating his belief that I had a conflict of interest on this proposal due to my owning a restaurant. I did not and do not meet the criteria for having a conflict of interest as outlined in the Texas Local Government Code. Since our last meeting, I think as everyone here is aware, we've lost one of our commissioners, making it very difficult to obtain a quorum whereby we can vote on any case. So in an effort to be continually sensitive to his concerns, I had asked staff to reach out to Mr. Condon in order to determine his level of comfort with my voting. My understanding is that he has stated that I may or may not be involved as my conscience dictates. But not wishing to delay the possibility of the development of this project any further, I will today be voting on the cases before us. So, to that end, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion?
I would like to make one statement, though, and that is, I think we are obliged to be careful that we don't get Concho Avenue so monotonous that it's boring.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
I take it from, this still hasn't been settled in my mind about, so the name, is the word angry the part of it?
No.
Not the word cactus, but only the device?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's been some good points made. I think Eric's got some great points. Ashley's got some good points. But, you know, I think we need to move forward with this process. So I'd like to make a motion to approve with the guidelines that the staff has recommended.
Subject to the 5 conditions of approval.
Yes, subject to the 5 provisions.
I second.
All right, well, a motion for approval with the 5 conditions upheld by Commissioner Mazur, and then it has been seconded, rather, by Commissioner Mallard. At this time, can we take a vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, then the motion is approved. Now, the next item is a request for an amendment to the previous approval of the exterior alterations of an existing building located within the river corridor on the following property: 1 West Concho, located at the southeast corner of the intersection of East Concho Avenue and South Chadburn Street, more specifically occupying the San Angelo Addition, Block B, Lot 21, north 49, 5.5 of the east 100 feet of lot in central San Angelo. The public hearing is now open, and the time is 10:45. Staff, may we have your presentation?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the second part. Back in June, Mr. Condon had come for a approval for the alterations of the building. At that time, he decided to pull the sign, and so we ended up treating them separately. So now that the sign is approved today, this is going to be just for the alterations to the building. So it's an amendment to the existing case, RCC 14-13. And so the new building renderings, which we'll show you in a minute, well, you've seen it in the previous application today, is for the 11-foot canopy at the front. It's going to run 16 feet from this corner here where Chadburn and Concho meet, where the entrance will be, and it will be about 16 feet along Concho and 16 feet down Chadburn, projecting 3 feet into the right-of-way for the overhang, and the cactus sculpture will sit on top of that. So that's the change to the buildings from the previous approval, as well as some of the walls will be pushed back a little bit, so the canopy will stick out. Those final drawings will be submitted through the permits division. Based on the sketches he provided, the renderings, there will not be any changes to the colors or the materials from what you had approved previously. It's just that canopy in the front, as well as some minor alterations with the building walls being pushed back that we had asked for in accordance with the River Corridor Master Plan.
What does pushed back mean? Is it from where it sits now, or from the way it was and they're pushing the wall back, or just the canopy?
The wall back, sir.
So, okay.
Yeah, so the
To
canopy.
make it, okay, so it doesn't stick out so far over the sidewalk.
No, actually, the reason for the walls being pushed back a little bit is because in the River Corridor Master Plan, one of the policies is that we don't want to have just a blank solid wall.
Right.
We want to have it consistent with some of the other buildings to show some variation. And so again, this was the original rendering that you approved on June 19th. And these are the revised renderings. So it's basically the same. It'll be a red or a tanned brick along the bottom, as well as a light yellow, neutral, and red stucco going along the side. That's what Mr. Condon wants. So the final details and color samples will be submitted to the planning director for final approval. However, because we're reopening it due to the canopy at the front, you'd have an opportunity again to look at the entirety of the building. And that's just the close-up again of the canopy.
Go through the conditions.
Oh, yes, thank you. So planning staff is recommending this approval as well with 4 conditions read into the record. Number 1, the applicant shall submit final plans to be administratively approved by the Director of Planning and Development Services or his or her designee prior to construction, showing the final color scheme and building materials, signage, lighting, and variation to the building walls with columns, recesses, and/or canopies to be consistent with the existing character of the area and with the attached revised renderings. Number 2, the applicant shall comply with all the standards outlined in the sign ordinance unless otherwise indicated or waived. Number 3, All illumination shall be designed in such a manner so as to minimize the potential for glare and unnecessary diffusion onto adjacent property and rights-of-way. And number 4, the applicant shall obtain a right-of-way encroachment agreement from City Council for any required grease trap, signage, and portion of the building which projects onto public right-of-way. Any questions or comments?
Is there any questions for staff at this time?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? Members of the commission, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant at all?
I certainly like this rendition better than the last one that we saw.
I think
So
that
I'm
was the
saying that for
consensus
sure.
across the board.
Yes.
Then if we approve this deal, then this will still go to city council for their
No, sir.
approval?
This,
No.
this commission has the ability to give the final approval for the renderings. This, just like the previous approval, ends here.
Okay, thank you.
But
The
it's-
encroachment agreement, however, for
Yes,
the
that's what I
protrusion
meant,
goes
the
forward. But the
encroachment.
appearance has been approved ultimately through here. Anytime anything encroaches onto a right-of-way, that has to be approved. by
Okay,
city council.
okay.
All right. If the commission has no further questions for staff or the applicant, and there are no other members of the public wishing to speak at this time, public hearing is now closed. At this time, unless you are specifically asked to come up to the podium and answer a direct question from the commission, or I reopen public hearing, please remain seated as the public comment period at this time has been closed. Commissioners, I'll now ask each of you if there are any further comments or observations that you'd like to make regarding this request. Commissioner Mazur?
Nope, not at this time.
Commissioner Morris?
No.
Commissioner Mallard?
No.
Okay.
No.
And Carter? Now that each commissioner has had an opportunity to speak on the matter, I'll instruct the commission as to what actions may be considered by this commission regarding the request. The commission may choose to approve the request subject to the conditions of approval presented by staff, or approve the request with changes to the height and size of the,
Sorry, eliminate number 2, sorry.
yeah, or deny the request, or remand the decision without a recommendation by this commission to the next available city council meeting. Now that I've outlined those possible actions, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion?
I move that we accept it.
All right.
I will second that
So a motion for approval with conditions,
with the 4.
with, yes, the 4 conditions recommended by staff. Commissioner Mallard has made that motion, and it has been seconded by Commissioner Morris. At this time, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Therefore, motion is carried. The last thing, the next regular meeting of the Design and Historic Review Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin on Thursday, December 18th at 10 a.m. in council chambers of the McNeese Convention Center at 501 Rio Concho Drive. Staff, do you have any comments or announcements? Anything further for us?
We have one project tentatively scheduled for the 18th, so the meeting will take place. It will not be, it's not tentatively scheduled anymore, so
Okay.
we do have one item. Moving forward, former Commissioner Eggemeyer's position has not yet been voted upon by City Council, so we still have one outstanding position to move forward. Unless there are any other comments from staff, then that would be it. Madam Chairperson.
Do I have?
Yeah, you certainly may.
I'd like to make a comment as a older member of the community that has downtown businesses for 30 years here. I came from Houston, big city boy coming to San Angelo, Texas. I probably did a little bit of what Mr. Condon did. I hope not quite as brusque as he did. But if he's going to remain here, I hope that he has learned something from this, that things do go smoother if you're not a friggin' bully. And I think that I've seen that everyone here has seen it, and I'd just like to make a suggestion that I also had to learn to, and I won't use the word cow or to anything like that, but I just think I learned that things are a little bit different here, not terribly different, but there are some times that you need to give things a second thought and not to be too terribly one way about things. You have given some. I'm proud of you for that, doing that, and I appreciate that. I think our group here is very highly paid, as you all well know, and I think they do a heck of a good job of doing what they do under some, and we don't need that kind of feedback, but I think sometimes it's certainly due, but it could be done in a different way. I'm sorry I didn't need to really ramble on here, but I had to make a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Are there additional comments from commissioners? All right. Well, is there a motion then to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Mazur, and then seconded by Commissioner Carter. This meeting is now at this time adjourned.
What time is it?
And it is 10:55.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.